Everybody, sit comfortably, spine erect, chin away from your chest, eyes gently closed. Shift your eye gaze to the third eye, the center of the eyebrows. Jyotikshmati, the light of awareness within. Take a deep breath and exhale. One more time. We'll begin today's session with the opening chant. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to the 10YEC weekly satsang. And this is my favorite time. This is my favorite time where we could all reflect on some of the knowledge nuggets from, or also known as the pearls of wisdom, from some of our ancient texts, but also coupled with some of the modern frameworks. And our goal is to bring them together so that we could actually use them to create a better world or create an excellent world for ourselves and for the people around us. So we've been studying Karma Yoga, path of selfless action and self-empowered action, bringing some of the essence from Bhagavad Gita and Mihaly flow theory and a Japanese Ikigai framework, and then also some of the growth mindset and the prosperity mindset. What we're going to do today is we're going to cover the last topic in the Karma Yoga series, which is the sage Patanjali's interpretation of Karma Yoga, also known as Kriya Yoga. It's very profound, and Patanjali succinctly summarizes the entire essence of Karma Yoga into a series of about 7 to 8 aphorisms, and that captures the entire essence. And what is interesting today is, as we are exploring the Patanjali's Kriya Yoga, we'll also connect it back to some of the things that we have already captured, or something that we've already studied, the essence from Bhagavad Gita, and then flow theory and some of the other concepts. So let's begin the journey of the exploration of the joint study. Excellent. I think that's the right thing. Let's jump right into it. As I said, today the focus is to cover Patanjali's interpretation of Karma Yoga. And Kriya, and it's defined as Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is one of the 3 streams of yoga that is covered in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. What Kriya Yoga essentially means is path of qualified action. Path of qualified action. So before we begin, let's offer our salutations to Sage Patanjali. Yogena chittasya padena vacha malam shariram cha vaidyakena vyopakarotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi. For those Sage Patanjali who gave us the 3 main tools to purify our body, mind, and the speech with his revelations on the Yoga Sutra, yoga knowledge, and the Ayurveda knowledge, but also the language or the Sanskrit grammar, so that we can all progress our journey into the Trikarana Shuddhi, Manasa Vacha Karmana, the purification. And then, of course, my salutations to my pranam to Sri Ramji for sharing this wisdom. And I hope I can convey some of the wisdom that he shared with me as the best as I can. So based on what we covered so far, a quick recap on what we covered so far. So there are essentially 9 key principles of the Karma Yoga that we covered. Number 1 is Nahika Chit Kshanamapi. As Bhagavan Krishna said, this entire universe is nothing but a manifestation of, is a matrix of action, is a manifestation of karma. There is not even a small moment or a space that is devoid of this karma. So we're all situated in this field of action, the matrix of action. But it doesn't mean that, it's kind of a fatalistic or deterministic world. The second principle says is karma still complies very well with the free will theory. In other words, we are empowered to create the world of our choosing. It's completely enables us to be the full self-empowerment. In other words, we can create a more joyful world for ourselves and for the people around us. Karma yoga is all about the self-empowerment. And then the third principle that we talk about is karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, which is karma is entitlement to action, not inaction or not results. So in other words, we are not entitled to the fruits of our actions. At the same time, we are also not entitled to not participating in the action. Inaction is not the karma yoga. And then the fourth one that we talked about is karma is laws of nature and physics. In other words, what you sow is what shall you reap. In other words, your actions determine the kind of consequences or the results that you're gonna face, whether it's near term or the long term. The universe simply complies with the laws of physics. Every action has an opposite reaction. And the fifth one is the most profound. Now that we understand the laws of karma, now how do we make the journey on this path of karma yoga, the path of selfless and self-empowering action? Number one is every action that we do needs to be an expression of happiness, not an expectation of happiness. And that's also something that we refer to as IPART, inner peace, outer dynamism. We always have to be situated in harmony before we act. You cannot actually wait for an action to result in an inner peace. And that's what is known as yogastha kuru karmani. Before you act, make sure that you're situated in the harmony. And if you're actually acting when you're agitated, you should actually take a step back and then first situated in yoga, in a harmony, only then should act. And then karma is also the prosperity and growth mindset. Like what Bhagavan Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, only because the oceans have a sense of abundance with the water and the rivers flow to it. If the ocean starts feeling the scarcity of water, then the rivers will go somewhere else. So we always have to have that sense of joy, exuberance, and abundance. And then from there, we need to act. If you act from the sense of lack, then the world will become more dukkha, constrained space. The things that need to come to you, you will have to work harder. You'll have to work harder. So you'll be operating from the space of constrained space, dukkha. So we always need to operate from sukha, which is like the really relaxed and open space, from the sense of abundance and exuberance. And then we also talked about karma yoga is about settling in flow state. And this is something that we are going to explore as we are talking about Patanjali's Kriya Yoga. And as Mihaly discovered, is our state of joyness is determined by when we engage voluntarily, without anybody's forcing, when we engage voluntarily in our actions, where the task that we are performing allows us to challenge our skills and resources by about 10 to 20%. We're always continuously pushing our capabilities by about 10 to 20%, nothing more, nothing less, for a cause that is meaningful or purposeful for you and for the world around you. And that is really one of the practical wisdoms of how we can engage in a continuous, establishing a continuous flow state. And the beautiful part is this 10 to 20% is a cumulative power exponentially. This is a non-linear exponential power. So that's how we actually build more infinite capacity, or path to the infinite capacity. And then we also talked about karma is about art of allowing. There is no sense of doership, which is where about, you simply are, this action and inaction, the blurred will, the distinction will also fade away. Those who can see inaction and action and action and inaction. And then that inner peace and outer dynamism, when you're establishing the harmony, and then when you're engaging it, we're only quarterbacking. We're only steering. We're only steering. We're not really trying to push the vehicle to, we're only driving. And let the outcomes happen. The nature has a bigger control because you don't control all the variables. We just need to establish the right inner peace and outer dynamism, and then start performing a karma without any entitlement for the results as an expression of abundance and happiness. Then the nature is going to automatically express itself to yield the right outcomes. It's the art of allowing. And then the last one that we talked about is the karma yoga is perhaps one of my favorite. I have a bias for karma yoga. Karma yoga is actually a culmination of all the other streams of yoga, where you can actually see bhakti and then jnana and even Raja Yoga in the meditation, where you can actually bring all the 4 streams of yoga into every action that we do, and how we can actually engage in the daily world by offering every action that you do from mundane to Mahan, and treat everything as an offering to the God, with no labels of whether it's mundane or Mahan and for who and everything. So when we start expressing an action and treat everything as an offering to that infinite source, that's when we actually culminate all the 4 paths of yoga: bhakti, raja, jnana, and we start seeing oneness in everything around us. We connect to the oneness within, and then we connect with the oneness all around. So that's a quick recap on what we covered so far. Any thoughts, comments on this? Okay, let's jump right into the meat. Does it make sense, or did I miss anything?
No. Set the stage. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this sets the stage for our next phase.
Yeah. Good. So now let's jump right into Patanjali, Sage Patanjali. In Sage Patanjali, in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali defined 3 streams of yoga. The first one is Kriya Yoga. It's just the path of qualified action. It's for the beginners. In the yoga journey. It's the beginners in the yoga journey. And then the second one is, which we covered earlier, which is the Ashtanga Yoga, which is the 8 limbs in the holistic yoga, 8 limbs of holistic yoga, where it's about yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. The whole holistic mixture of all the 8 limbs. The holistic culmination of all the 8 limbs is the Ashtanga Yoga, which we have been studying. In fact, Kriya Yoga, as we can see, is actually something, is a small part of the Ashtanga Yoga. And then the Ashtanga Yoga is almost like the wholesome yoga journey. And then for advanced practitioners, Patanjali also defined in chapter 1 in the Samadhipada, which is the Samadhi Yoga, which is directly you can actually get into the path of mind control and then exploring the different stages of Samadhi and the enlightenment. So for those advanced yoga practitioners, you do not have to go through all these other things, because you're already there and you can just go to the depths of the enlightenment and the connecting to the oneness. And this is also something that Bhagavan Krishna has also said in the Bhagavad Gita. What it says, like, Arurukshor Munir Yogam Karma Karana Muchyate. For those beginning students of yoga, the action, the path of Karma Yoga, the path of Kriya Yoga is the right path. Whereas the Yoga Budasya, for those advanced yogis, so Shamak Karana Muchyate, they can actually pursue the path of equanimous mind, where they can actually directly go into the state of the mind control, samyama, and those advanced samadhi practices. And why so? For those beginners, it is easier to control the body, your actions in the body, than controlling the mind. So it's almost like, we are using this as a lever. We are using the body as a lever to actually get get access to the mind, and then get your mind situated into inner peace. And then as we go through this journey, then we will also become yogarudasya. We will also start becoming the advanced yogis, where we don't really need to take the help of an action, where you don't even feel whether it's an action or inaction, where you are simply situated in the mind control, in the harmonious and equilibrium mind. So this is what Bhagavan Krishna said, and that's what Patanjali also defined, which is where for the Kriya Yoga is the right path of yoga for the beginners in the yoga journey. So what is Kriya Yoga? Patanjali defined Kriya Yoga in chapter 2. The first sutra goes like this: Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana Kriya Yogaha. Tapah Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana Kriya Yogaha. And it's so beautiful, right? Patanjali gets to the essence, like what the sutras actually says: Alpaksharam Vasandigdam Vishwatomukam Saravat Anavadyam Astovam Sutram Sutra Vedanicha. In very few words, Patanjali cuts to the right essence. So for the right path of qualified action, the right path of Karma Yoga or the Kriya Yoga path of qualified action needs to have 3 attributes. One is tapas. Second one is swadhyaya. Tapas is the purifying action, or the intense action, or heating the system. Tapas essentially means heating the system. Or the other way to do it is willingly one wants to put themselves in an uncomfortable situation to do the right thing. They are the change agents. And that's what Bhagavan Krishna also says: Abhyudhanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham. Whenever there is a dharma that gets drifted, and tapas is willingly wanting to put in effort, push yourself into the uncomfortable zone to do the right thing. That's the heating the system. And swadhyaya is the boundaries. It's about self-study. When you are actually doing the tapas, how are you doing the tapas? Are you overheating the system? Are you less heating the system? And you always have to continuously self-aware, self-study. And the third one is Ishvara Pranidhana. This is the right brain stuff. Surrender all the results to the Ishvara, the supreme energy, supreme being. So any action that conforms to these 3 attributes is the path of qualified action. Now let's look into each one of these a little bit more closely. The first one is tapas. Tapas, as it directly says, it's about heating the system. Heating the system is generally a good thing. Like, when you are cooking the vegetables, when you heat the system, you kill all the bacteria and, all that kind of stuff. You're actually doing this. So and at the same time you're pushing yourself to the boundaries beyond the boundaries of your comfortable zone. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. And entrepreneurship is like, you don't accept the status quo the way that it is. You want to actually push yourself beyond your comfortable zone to do the right thing, That's the important thing. That is what is tapas. That's what tapas is. And then there are 3 types of tapas as defined in Bhagavad Gita. There is number 1 is the Sharira tapas, the tapas of the body. Vangmaya tapas, which is the tapas of speech. And the third one is Manas tapas, tapas of the mind. These are the 3 big faculties: Manasa, Vacha, Karmana, the purification of heating the system across the 3 primary faculties: tapas of the body, tapas of the speech, and tapas of the mind. So now let's look at what is Sharira tapas. What do we mean by, how do we want to use our body to engage? What is the right path of qualified tapas? In Bhagavan Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, the way the Sharira tapas is defined as Deva Dvija Guru Prajna Pujanam, Shauchanam, Arjavam. Pujanam, Shaucham, Arjavam. Brahmacharyam, Ahimsacha, Shariram, Tapa Uschate. Shariram, Tapa Uschate. So there are key elements here. Whatever the actions that you're doing, essentially with your body needs to be used as in the service of Deva to do the divine action, Dvija, in the service of the Brahmins or the learned people, the Guru, the teachers. And with that, which is where when we are actually using a body in devotion or in the service to do the work of the divine, to do the work of the learned people, to do the work of gurus, and with as an offering, as a prayer, pujanam, which is like pujate jayate to puja, which is like from the sense of fullness and from the sense of abundance and exuberance, and with nothing of your own self thing. No, basically it's like it's not for your own selfish needs, but it is more to do in the service of the divine and the learned and the gurus, and with the right attributes, brahmacharyam ahimsacha, with no violence, with non-violence, and with brahmacharya, means we're always brahmacharya in the contemplation of the Brahma. And that is what it is. God has given us this body as a vessel to keep itself very pure, shaucha, and then use it in the service of the others, so that we are actually doing the divine action. And then always be anchored in non-violence and being truthful, and always contemplation of the Brahman. In other words, we are actually, we are walking towards the Brahman. We are moving closer to that one. That is what is the right Sharira Tapas. So in other words, it doesn't mean that we are actually keeping ourselves in the comfort zone. We have to engage. We have to keep our body strong. In fact, Bhagavad Gita also says, what are the right offerings to the divine? It says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. And the first patram is symbolism to the body. We have to keep our body. We have to take care of, nurture our body as an offering, like a leaf, patram, as an offering to the divine. But at the very same time, that means we have to keep it fit, keep it healthy, keep it cleanly, and make sure that we are only engaging in non-violence. If you're fit, it's not because you want to go hurt others. No, you have to be fit because you have to build the capacity to do the divine task, to push yourself into the uncomfortable zone, to be that entrepreneur, to be the change agent. But at the same time, just like how the leaf is going to fall off from the tree, but you don't be attached to it. Patram. Then Patram Pushpam, the second offering is Pushpam. Always be anchored in love, like the flower. And we always have to exhibit compassion and love in everything that we do. And that is how we want to keep ourselves or prepare ourselves. And then Phalam, the flower, the fruits of our action, surrender them to the divine. And Toyam. Toyam is water. It's a sense of tears of gratitude. The tears of gratitude. We always have to have express the tears of gratitude as an offering to the divine. And again, this is one of the ways, the Sharira Tapas, where how we want to use our faculty as the body to keep it fit and to keep it clean, when always engage it in the service of the divine and the learned and the guru. And what it essentially means is work towards the well-being of the world around us. And that's essentially the vision and the purpose at YEC, how to design excellence in the world. So we have to deploy our resources. It starts with Shariram. And then the second tapas is about walk, Vangmaya tapas. Vangmaya tapas. What is the right purification for our speech? What is the right purification? What is the right tapas for our speech? And Bhagavan Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Anudvega karam vakyam. Anudvega karam vakyam. Satyam priya hitam chayat. Satyam priya hitam chayat. Swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate. In other words, every word that comes out of that we speak, those words need to be rooted in satyam, being truthful, and priyam will be compassionate and loving, not to hurt others, and hitam, it's for the well-being of others. Satyam priyam hitam, every word that we actually, every speech needs to be rooted in those three. But at the same time, they are not anudvega karam, they are not rooted in hatred, in hurtfulness. So every vakyam, every word that we do needs to be in satyam priya hitam cha. Truthful, compassionate, loving, and it's for the well-being, to design excellence. And then what Bhagavad Gita also says, Swadhyaya Abhyasanam. In fact, everything that we speak is almost like we are always be self-studying. It's almost like you're talking to yourself. Even when you're actually talking to others, you're actually talking to yourself. You're always, that's your self-study. And that self-study and self-awareness, that is it in the well-being of others? Is it hitam? Is it compassionate and loving? And is the speech satyam? And am I allowing any kind of hatred or negative energy to come in? If that is there, then we have to work towards it. The tapas for the purification of the speech is to progress towards the satyam priya hitam and always be self-aware. Always be self-aware. In fact, we have to practice more towards, Patanjali. We can even reduce the amount of words. And when you become more self-aware, we can actually communicate we can actually achieve what we want to do. Once we are anchored in Satyam Priyam Hitam, we can actually even reduce the number of words. We can be there. But at the same time, if you want to, we can also let it go to the other side. All these beautiful songs and literature, they flew because they are in the service. They are actually an expression, an expression of divine and happiness. So you let it simply flow. But everything is swadhyaya abhyasanam. You're almost like talking to yourself. Most of the time, actually, a lot of us, we say it, but we are not even aware of what we are actually saying. If you actually use that as a study, put a tape recorder and listen to your own conversations every day and use that as a learning experience. And that actually is perhaps one of the greatest schools, just recording our own selves and using that as a self-study. And that is a tapas. That is the Vangmaya tapas. The tapas, the purification of the speech. And the third one is the manas tapas. Manas tapas. Mana prasadaha saumyatyam. Mana prasadaha saumyatyam. Maunam atma vinigraha. Atma vinigraha. Maunam atma vinigraha. Bhava sansiddhar ityat tapo manasam uchyate. Tapo manasam uchyate. What is the right purification for our mind and for our manas? First one is mana prasada saumyatyam. Which is like saumatyam, in harmony, in the joyful state. Always that equanimous state. And then maunam, atma vinigraham, practicing silence in that meditation. Atma vinigraham. So in that silence, in that harmonious mind, we get connected to the self within. And that's what meditation allows us to do. Meditation allows us to get rid of all the chatter, all the noise, whether it's through the words or the thoughts, and just become the surface of a clear lake. And then when that happens, when it's the surface of a clear lake, we can actually see the depth. See the depth. It's when we get connected to the self. to the one. We get reposed in the self. And that is the right tapas, right purification of the mind. The shariram is about brahmacharya ahimsa, but use your body to keep it fit and clean and energetic and be a change agent in the service of the divine, in the service of the divine, to do the divine actions and the guru and the learn and work for the well-being. And use the words to only do the satyam priyam hitam. Be truthful and be in loving and compassionate and in the well-being of the others. And then every word needs to be, it's like a self-study. And then ultimately, this manastapas is the purification of the mind to be in that saumatvam, to be in that harmonious and joy state, and then practicing more silence and atma vinigraha, so that we actually get reposed in self. It is tapas. Now, once we understood what are the right parameters, or what are the right types of tapas, the purification that we can do with our body, speech, and the mind. Now, the second one is the swadhyaya, which is being like guarding our tapas, the intense heating of the system, or pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And what are the right boundaries around it? And what swadhyaya is tapas within the optimal boundary. Optimal boundary. And this one is where in Bhagavad Gita, we actually talk about there are three types of tapas. The first tapas is the sattvic tapas. In other words, you're actually achieving the optimal boundary. Shraddhaya parayataptam. Shraddhaya parayataptam. Tapas tat pridvidam naraha. Afalakankshabir yuktaiva sattvikam parichakshate. What it means is you're not really afala kanksha. In other words, you're not really trying to do this tapas because you're trying to optimize your own gains. Like, I build a startup because I want to make $1 billion. Right? That is not the sattvic tapas. And that is, we look into the next one, that is more of a rajasic tapas. You're trying to either do that for fame or temporary gains. Again, you're still conforming to the right principles of the constitution or whatever the market economy and so on and so forth. But you're not trying to maximize the gains for yourself. You're not trying to do that for the gains of yours. You're actually doing it in the service of Deva Dvija Guru, in the service of others. And Shraddhaya, with full concentration, with one-pointedness. That is the sattvic tapas. When the work that you're doing, when you are pushing yourself, when you're being the change agent in the service of others, you're being more socially conscious, not to maximize your own gains. That is the right sattva. That is the right intense effort that you're putting. There's the right kind of tapas that we need to be engaged in. And that is also kind of the purpose that we are all trying to ascribe at the YEC and the Youth Excellence Center, to build more socially conscious and inclusive entrepreneurs who become the change agents to design excellence in the world. And then the next one is Rajas tapas. Satkaramana pujardam tapo dambena chaiva yat kriyate. Oh, dambena chaiva yat kriyate. Tad iha proktam rajasam chala adruvam. Rajasam chalam adruvam. In other words, those intense efforts that you put for satkaramana pujardam, for the fame, like, you do yogasanas to participate in some competitions, or you build some companies to go ring the bell in NASDAQ, or it says like, I built, $1 billion, and to maximize, this extreme capitalism. So these are the actions. These are known as rajasam. In other words, you're still doing everything according to the rules of the game. You're still doing that. But the motivation behind it, why are you doing this? If you're doing this for fame or money, or to maximize the profits, within the rules of the constitution, that is called as a Rajas Tapas. Rajas Tapas. Right? But what it also says is the gains that you get from the Rajas are temporary. It doesn't actually give in that eternal joy. And that's what Patanjali says. Now come in the first Yoga Sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. You've done everything in your life so far. You wanted to achieve a degree, you wanted to come first, and you wanted to get a nice job, and wanted to make $1 million, you wanted to buy a condo or a house and all those things. But what you realize is the joy that you get from these accumulations in this Rajas kind of an effort are temporary. It's a roller coaster. It's only when we start working in that Sattvic Tapas, being the change agent, in the service of the others, those joy becomes more eternal, more everlasting. That's where Patanjali says, Atha Yoga Anusasanam. Now come to the path of yoga. Now I'll tell you how you can actually connect to your true identity of Nitya Sucha Sukha Atma, how you can experience that eternal joy. And then the last one, which is the worst quality of the tapas, which is tamas. Muda grahentamano yat pidyaya kriyate tapha, yat pidaya kriyate tapaha, parayotsadanartam vatat tamasam udahiritam. What it actually means is muda grahentamano, which is like, people that are actually, it's almost like they're putting a lot of things, they're rooted in some of these not really the good values. And then sometimes they're overheating the system too. They're overheating the system. It almost becomes a torture for themselves and torture for the people around them. And this is literally overheating the system. Like, for example, when you're cooking, when you cook it at the optimal boundary, it actually becomes you kill the bacteria. But if you overcook it, what happens? It actually becomes, can even become cantankerous, can even result in cancer and the poison and some of those things. So some of these, particularly, this is something that we need to be always guarded about. Like some of the youth, they literally in the pursuit of their accomplishments, they overheat the system, ignoring sleep, ignoring this and all this kind of stuff. While there might be some limited outcomes in one dimension, but it actually becomes a torture for your own body, your own mind, and for the people around. And there is a funny story. There is a student went to the guru, and the guru actually basically gave a script on how to get to enlightenment. Is already in a little bit of an advanced yoga practitioner, and then the teacher said, with the way that you're doing, if you continue these practices for 2 hours a day with these things, you will actually get to enlightenment, in 20 years. And then the student was very happy. And he basically said, and then he went back and then he did some calculations. He says, like, what if I do 4 hours a day, the practice? And then the guru looked at the calculations and says, like, then it's going to take you 40 years. It's going to take 40 years. So there is always the right optimal amount and effort. That is what Swadhyaya guides you to actually get to the thing, get to the outcomes that you need. But overheating the system, getting to, which is like, sometimes it is right. We're all on this long marathon. We don't even know what the marathon, the beginning and the end is, right? The journey is the destination, not any specific achievements. The journey itself, we need to enjoy every moment of the journey. Every step in the journey needs to be a destination that you should be able to celebrate every moment. One of my potential partners, not potential partners, but my guru, Rajesh, is now has become a big partner. In fact, he was the owner of this Vision. Then one day we were talking about it, and Rajesh said, Srini, I want to make sure that I don't want to fail you on this wise vision. I says, like, what is there in the failure? Every step that we are doing is just a brilliant success. Nothing that we ever imagined. It's always a sense of wonder. So everything, particularly, I think, the young kids that we are doing, where they believe that they always want to get to an outcome. And sometimes, they over deploy these resources. They over deploy their resources and they ignore the body and the mind and the faculties, or a sense of well-being with the family and the community. But, you win some, but you lose a lot. So again, this is the tamas kind of a tapas. And in fact, when we looked at the flow state, the Mihaly kind of came up with the right framework for what is the right swadhyaya kind of tapas, where number one, you have to deploy all your faculties and then push it to about 20%, constantly push it to about 10 to 20%, and voluntarily without being forced, and deploy this to a force, deploy this to a purpose that's meaningful to you and meaningful for the world. And this is the right sattvic kind of a tapas, where it's in the service of the others, and where you're deploying all your faculties, keeping them fed, and then keeping them fed, and then you're pushing it into an uncomfortable zone willingly. And that's when you get the exuberance. That's when you do the joy. And that's what is the right swadhyaya, the flow state. And then the last one, the third attribute, is Ishvara Pranidhana, which is all about surrender, devotion, and expressing the tears of gratitude. And that's what truly love is. Love is not a transaction, it's a surrender. It's about sharing. It's an expression of gratitude. It's an expression of devotion. Ishvara Pranidhana. And the first two attributes of the Kriya Yoga are more like a left brain. Or the Swadhyaya is more of a left brain. And then Ishvara Pranidhana is more of that emotional. You do everything with a sense of love as an expression of joy, an expression of devotion. And with the left brain and right brain, and then use your body and the mind with the action, then engage in an action. And that's the wholesome Kriya Yoga. Swadhyaya is the right guiding principle. And then Ishvara Pranidhana is the right emotional quotient, like logos and pathos. And that's how you act in the world. You perform your actions. And this is what we looked in Bhagavad Gita. Mai sarvani karmani, which is where perform every action as an offering to me. See me in every action. See the divine and the creator in every action. And that's when we actually, and then with nirashir nirmamo bhutva, which is like, don't have any sense of I-ness, ahankara, and no expectations, and maintain that equanimous state. And that is when we actually connect to the oneness, and that's the right form of action. And this is how we can culminate all bhakti, gnana of Advaita and meditation and karma yoga into everything. And Patanjali succinctly summarized all this into one principle, which is tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanani, kriya yogaha. This is the right path of the qualified action, right mode of doing the quality action. And this is also what we expressed as Ikigai. And Ikigai is also Japanese framework. It summarizes the same thing. Every time when you are doing it, there are people who are doing certain actions, either for fame or money and accumulation. But Ikigai is when you are actually training yourself, deploying your resources to something that the world needs, And that's when we actually get the complete optimal state of being. We get in the flow state, and then the samyama. So that's a quick overview of the Kriya Yoga. And in the follow-on session, we actually go into the internal mechanics in the journey. What are the klesha jama karma? What are the actions that include residue? And then how we can actually transcend those to be in the path of yoga to actually get to dhyana jama, the karma. And then what Patanjali declares. Patanjali declares, and this is a very bold declaration. And what it basically says is, Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. And that is what we're going to cover in the next session. And what it basically says is the promise is that by following this Kriya Yoga and following the path of qualified action, all the suffering and all the misery can be avoided. And then we can transcend the life cycle of the karma and break free from this bondage.
I didn't get that.
And then we basically simply become connect to the oneness, connect to the oneness. And we'll cover this in the next session. That's all I have. And again, the one simple thing is all the essence that we covered in the Karma Yoga, it simply is captured as one sutra in Patanjali, which is Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yogaha. And the beautiful thing is, these three attributes are part of the niyamas, the self-discipline that we impose on ourselves. In the niyamas, there are 5 principles, 5 niyama principles. What are the self-discipline principles? Which are Saucha Santosha Tapaswadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Niyamaha. Maintaining cleanliness and always being content, and then following every action in the path of Kriya Yoga is a prerequisite, is one of the core limbs in the Ashtanga Yoga. In the Ashtanga Yoga. That's it for today. Any questions? Let's chant Om 3 times. Take a deep breath. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. We wish everybody to be happy. We wish everybody to be free of sorrow and illness. We wish everybody to see only auspicious things, and let there be peace everywhere. These wonderful thoughts, rub your palms, generate the fire and love of knowledge. Cup your eyes to transmit this knowledge to give us the right vision, to see the things the way they are. Thank you all for sharing the joy of learning, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you. Namaste.
Any questions, comments, thoughts that anybody would have?
Srinivas, I've made a mind map. I just want to tell me if I've missed anything.
Sorry,
Can
what is that? No, it's a fantastic thing. So why don't you go through? I'll make you the presenter. Why don't you present? Just one second.
No. You don't have to make me as a presenter.
Okay.
Yeah. Just put I put like a loop, like it's gone in a loop. Like karma yoga, karma is nothing but action, and there is a 2 path, dhyana jama and klesha jama. It's also can be of adharma and dharma. That there are 2 actions, action and inaction, which create both have action and inaction. So action and inaction in klesha jama creates attachment, which leads into negative or pain outcome. And the circle goes again and again, that circle. So dhyana jama also has action and inaction. which creates it's creation of conscious action. It's a conscious action, which leads to intuitive power development, and a meditative state that also leads to meditative state of action, which then from there it creates a flow state, which creates an expression of joy, which has no attachment as a result. There is no attachment to the result. So full acceptance of the result and gratitude. And after this, it creates a boomerang effect. You get what you sow, and then which creates an imprint for the future action. That's a growth mindset. So and the dharma cycle, and the dharma again karma cycle goes again round and round.
Actually, that's beautiful. I think you should make a couple of infographics. I think the way you parse this, all these dimensions, like the three big pivots, right? Or the dimensions. One is action and inaction, dhyana jama and klesha janma. The one with residue, one without the residue, and the one actions that are according to the dharma are not dharma. And then the flow set. So I think you got. I mean, it's fantastic how you did it. The only thing that if I may suggest, is that once you start performing, like the way you even captured intuition is fantastic. Once you start performing actions in the dhyana jama, in that state of meditative, in the state of meditation, then you break out of the karma cycle.
So the cycle doesn't go then. It's not a full cycle.
No. So basically, it's like you stop accumulating and residue. You break out of it. So the dhyana jama is basically
what happens to my good karma then? What happens to my good karma then? Like, so I want to accumulate good
basically
karma.
Then there is this good and bad chatter will also be gone. There is no labels. And then you are simply the mind, the chatter of, the gunas, which we are going to recap again. So basically it's like anything, tatra dhyanajam anashayam. Once you're established in that meditative state, there is anashayam, then it becomes a residue-free action. So then there is, for in the state of yogi, there is also not even a good or bad. Both are actually gunas, good or bad. You raise above, you transcend above the qualities. And then because you're simply letting that intuition and divine to express yourself. So everything is is a divine action. So
that doesn't create an imprint for the future.
No.
It doesn't create imprint. Okay, I was thinking about this, right? Like if that's the case, when Bharata Muni got fond of the deer and he fell in love with the deer, and I don't know if you know that story. And because he got so attached to the deer, he was reborn as a deer. But because he had the Purva Janma good karmas, he didn't stay in that life long. So I'm saying, what happens to the good imprints? I want to keep the good imprints. So you're saying I will have no good imprints at all for the future?
No, basically there is, the thing is, once you walk on the path of yoga, then you basically is like, you transcend about the good and bad. So it's the good and bad is again the labels when you are in the cycle of the karma, right? And then, when you become a yogi, you transcend, you break out of the cycle. In fact, you stop accumulating any residue. There is a good or bad, because both good or bad, you have to burn through them. Your essentially entire job is to become zero. Your quota has to become zero. Right? That's when tatparam purushakyate guna vaitrushnyanyam. That's when you get reposed in the self. What is the self? Self is like, nirguna nirvikara. There is no attributes. It's just, just consciousness. It's just, right? So basically it's like only when the Prakriti is acting through us, that's when we get the labels.
So what happens to dana, dharma, not dana, and, there are other ways of, what happens to those ones then?
Those things actually prepare your vessel to actually, the more sattva that you actually do, it prepares you to keep the mind in more, it actually elevates you to more of it's a path to becoming quickly into dhyana jama. So only when you build the sattva and the dharma and the stuff, you can actually then easily can get into meditative state. And once you start the yama, niyama, avidya, asmita. So this is like, if you take one of the, which we're going to get into the discussion, the more you let go of the me, my, and the self, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, then what happens is there is more sattva that is going to prevail. And then the more sattva that is going to get into is like, then you're going to get into the mind essentially doesn't have to do anything, just becomes a translucent filter, because the only reason mind gets into the thing is when you're having the chatter of you versus me. Now, once that gets the thing, once there is no separation of you versus me, you are just, out there in the service of others. There is no sense of me. Then what happens is then every action that you do is directly comes from the intuition, because you have to less engage the mind chatter. Then those actions are reposed in the self. Then those become divine. Those become the dhyana jama kshama, dhyana jama karma. And then that is basically, it's like, then you are like the sun, and you're just, being there and constantly radiating. The radiation of the consciousness. Then we become, at that time, it's like Satchitananda, or the pure consciousness. So that is the path of the yogi. So even the beautiful thing is you can actually
Why can't a bhogi also be a little bit of yogi?
Yeah. The crossings are going to come in.
I want to go too far, but I want to be like, at least burn through my bad karmas and at least
exactly.
pick,
the fact that you're sitting here is you're actually burning through all the crossings from your Quebec, right? So it's just like but we're going to eventually. But the beautiful thing, the way I understood, there is a beautiful story from Yajnavalkya. What they say is, how can you be in a dhyana jama karma even in performing the worldly duties? Like, for example, you can still be married. He has actually, I think Yajnavalkya has like 2 or 3 wives. Is married.
Yeah.
And still,
brahmacharya is a state of mind. It doesn't mean that.
Brahmacharya is actually, here's the 2 things. The brahmacharya is the true definition, brahmacharya iti brahmacharya, the contemplation of Brahman. But when you are in the married life, even when you are in the married life, when you are not optimizing for the sense of I, me, my family, right? You just performing the marriage is like just a union, a companion, but you're not there. Like, take perhaps in my interpretation of, let's say, Shiva, Parvati. They are there, but they are not serving each other. They are actually together as one, but they're actually serving the world. So there is no real separation of, it's not like, Shiva has a nepotism for Ganesha and, Kartikeya and all that stuff, where everybody is like, son, daughter, or everything is more inclusive part of him. So then when you have that sense of oneness with everything all around, when it is limited to a boundary of me, my wife, my family, that's when you become a klesha jama karma. Then if you're following the dharma, then it's a good, it's a bad thing. But the more it's tied to a boundary of the asmitaness, then you start accumulating the residue. The goal is to transcend the thing. So that's kind of a little bit of the way I interpret the entire karma life cycle. Ramakantji, anything that you would want to add?
Yeah. I think first of all, I'm really astonished. Just by just a couple of us sitting here discussing this topic show, I'm really so very happy. First of all, and our sincere questions to seek answers, right? This itself is a big deal. I think this is first of all very amazing. And adding to Savitaji's stuff, I have some interesting, like SwamiJ.com has just this karma topic through the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and they have specific infographics on it. So I will pause right here, and I think we'll allow the fun that is already ready from Sriniji, right? And at the end, based on our time, right, I can probably share all those infographics. But let's jump into the fun part, right? And we'll see what we missed.
Excellent.
Very profound, Sriniji. Very wonderful one. And like you said, I think we should do one more week of it. I think the reason being, I think karma we always do. And we are discussing about karma yoga. So, hey, anyway, we are acting. Nahi kaschit kshnamapi. So, everything, everywhere there is action. So how can we turn that into a karma, right? Or turn it into karma yoga. So I definitely am very excited because there are some slides and some shlokas that I wanted to share. So we'll do that next time.
So how about we do that in the next session, Ramakantji, if you don't mind, and let's just
yeah, that's what we will do it in the we will do it in the next session only.
Next session. We'll do it in the next session.
Absolutely. And
does this make sense? How Patanjali summarized everything into one simple sutra, and he captured the entire essence of Karma Yoga?
Yeah, this is for somebody who doesn't want to do yoga, or somebody doesn't want to do as I said, it's a beginner level, without going through the entire Ashtanga yoga. But I think where he says tapas, going to the uncomfortable place, but Ashtanga yoga is the going to the uncomfortable place. I think that steps make sense if this is in between, like, a small piece of Ashtanga yoga.
Exactly. But the thing is, this one is not just about the yoga. Of course, every action that we do is like a yoga. Yeah. But like when you go to a job, or when you do anything, or your own keeping yourself fit, going to performing an exercise is like keeping your body fit. Many people are not even aware. The key thing is, your body is a divine gift. It's like your vehicle. And the unfortunate thing is, when I started reflecting on it, people buy expensive cars and they're very particular about the maintenance of the vehicle. Right? There is like, there is a timetable, there is a schedule, and then they don't miss anything. And there is a whole team of dealers that are working on your vehicle. But there is a $1 billion vehicle that you're carrying, which is actually the main thing that allows you to experience the world. And this one, unfortunately, there are no dealers. You just have to work at it. And that
I
connection.
feel Vangmaya tapas should be first. Yeah. Because we talk out of things ourselves, like, more than talking ill about others. I think what we say we are much more cruel to ourselves than others. We are much more kinder in compared to what we are for ourselves. Very critical, very judgmental, like, so I feel, I think Vangmaya tapas, I would start from there, and Sharira tapas automatically happens. Like, if I don't talk out myself from working out, then that's a success, right? So I don't know, I'm just thinking, like,
yeah, I think that's absolutely, that's one dimension. But as I was reflecting on this while I was preparing for this session, is Vangmaya tapas, it occurred to me, is like, that Swadhyaya, every word that needs to be done, it needs to be a self-study. It's almost like we are constantly recording and replaying to ourselves. Does this make sense? And most of the time we say something we are not even aware of. It's just speech becomes a simple loose. It's like, empty words, and we don't understand the consequences. But if that becomes a continuous learning, be in that state of awareness, everything is almost like when you're speaking, you become the teacher and the student. It's almost like, you're speaking to yourself, somebody is speaking to yourself. And then I think this thought, actually, maybe I should do an experiment. I should record myself in a day and then replay it towards the end.
No, I did once. Every thought which came to me, I started writing down. Like, it went on for 3 pages, and then I said, my 3rd grade teacher came to my mind. I'm like, why she is here? Like, like the thought goes so many places, like, there's no end to it.
But look at it this way, these thoughts and words are the biggest dissipation of energy.
True.
biggest
True.
dissipation of energy. This is the biggest leaks of energy. And this is where comes in what Shankara says, satsangatve nisangatvam. We need to be very, very choosy about our associations. Right? Choosy about our associations. And means like not just the people, like what we associate with, the things that we watch and this and that, because all of them create impressions. It
Absolutely.
doesn't, yeah,
Absolutely.
and it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you cannot be not having fun. No, fun can be expressed, can be experienced and expressed in a way. In other words, in fact, something might look like tamas, and then, but it only gives that instant burst, but all it leads to is suffering. Or rajas, the one that is much more longer lasting is the sattva based expression. That's cool. So
I have one last question.
Without
Using any fancy words, without using Vangmaya tapas, Sharira tapas. Somebody has no idea, not an Indian, has no idea about karma, was living under a stone. You meet them on it's like an elevator pitch, right? How do you explain karma to them?
Oh, I see. That's a good question. Karma is just, I think it's basically is like your responsibility, you're being responsible for your own actions. Right? And then karma also is like, what I was trying to do that is, it is more of selfless and self-empowerment action. And the thing is, the first one is, you're responsible for your actions is karma. And now how do you become, then the karma is also, eventually becomes a bondage, but everybody's like, what is bondage? Nobody knows it. You're responsible for your actions, and those results manifest in different ways that you probably don't even have a thing. But then how do you transcend this bondage? Is that always perform a selfless and self-empowerment. In other words, always move to the path of your own empowerment, move to becoming a better of yourself and better of the world around you. The more you are actually constantly striving to create a better world around you, that's the right mode of karma yoga. That's it. The world is, outer world and inner world. In fact, that is literally, that's what Vivekananda used to say. He always is like, I don't want to ever go to this mountains and be these monks in this meditation. I always want to be born as a human again and again and again. And I want to be born in the service of the human and in the service of the well-being of the others. That's all he said. Just like, karma
I think the inward and the outward, they feed off of each other. Like, the more inward you can go, the stronger you become, you also become selfless. And then I feel that they will basically like a resonance, right? They help each other out.
True. I think, that is what is the inner peace and outer dynamics, right? When you are not stronger within the self,
what are you going to do for anybody else?
Very difficult to, because when you are not in harmony, you cannot, share harmony with others, right? When you are scattered, when you are in pieces, you can never be in peace. So I think it's extremely important. But I think, it's actually, they're mutually related, actually. And this is what I learned.
My wording probably is not, like, that's what I was trying to say. They're like very related to each other, and they help each other is what I was trying to say, like,
Perfect. I think, they probably are coalesced. That's what they said, that's why the creation is so beautiful. The way they designed your inner world, like what is there inside an atom is exactly what is there in the cosmos outer world, right? They're one and the same, Atman and the Brahman. So what means is, like, as an example, when I was a little bit scattered, the more I started engaging in some of the sharing activities in India and helping others, the more joyful that I became.
Mm-hmm.
And also you find solution for your problems.
Exactly. Then it's like,
because you're not focusing on yours, but somehow you will get a solution you'll have an aha moment, and it somehow clears up.
And the thing is, for me, it's that I basically felt like I didn't even have any problem.
Mhm.
When you see
They
the
just
whole thing, I
dissolve
just like,
away. They become like a nothing. That's what I
True.
would say.
exactly.
So
That's
I call them as so what, oh, so what? Let it be.
yeah. And this is literally the sharing is one of the, if you look at the triad of YEC, the tech entrepreneurship, where we all need to do tapas and we need to be the change agent. And then the second one is yoga and mindfulness to be in that harmonious mind. And then the third one is the sharing. The third pillar in the triad is the sharing. Only when you start connecting between the people around, and then you participate in this the sharing of give and take exchange, where you see other people's needs, and then you share what you have, and then vice versa. That's a wholesome solution, the triad. And if you don't have the sharing, and if you only keep your own thing and you've been changing, then you're probably not deploying your facilities. The more you actually get exposed to the others and be in that give and take system, I think then it creates a perfect equation. But everybody, thank you so much for the wonderful thing and the way it all kind of came together, which is the tapas, the purification of body, mind, and the body, speech, and the mind, and then the intense effort, but make sure that they're all sattva but not rajas or tamas. Tamas is definitely, we should avoid it because it's torture. And then Ishwar Pranidhanani, so that we actually get the left brain, right brain, and we are creating more joyful experience, and then we are all designing excellence in the world. So on that note, let's end with the final.
I have one quick question. You do not know me. This is the first time I'm joining. I'm a friend of Sajni. She gave me your information a while ago and I could not make time. So I went to your YouTube channel and watched a few random things because, there's so much out there. I didn't know what to watch. So one question I have is these sessions, I love Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Bhagavad Gita. Are these sessions available on your YouTube channel for me to watch?
Yes, there's a absolutely. Number one, thank you so much. I was going to ask this question, but I'm glad that you reveal your own identity. So I'll connect with you separately. Yes, on the same channel, there is a channel called Patanjali Weekly Yoga Sessions. That's where you have the entire. Okay. Yeah, I'll send you a link as well.
Perfect. And I would love to be able to have a quick chat with you. I won't take up your time, but I would like to connect with you outside of this.
Yep, absolutely. We'll do that. Okay, everybody, close your eyes. Comments?
Very profound, Sriniji. Very wonderful one. And like you said, I think we should do one more week of it. I think the reason being, I think karma we always do. And we are discussing about karma yoga. So, hey, anyway, we are acting. Nahi kaschit kshnamapi. So, everything, everywhere there is action. How can we turn that into a karma, right? Or turn it into karma yoga. So I definitely am very excited because there are some slides and some shlokas that I wanted to share. So we'll do that next time.
So how about we do that in the next session, Ramakanji, if you don't mind, and let's just
that's what we will do it in the we will do it in the next session only.
Next session. We'll do it in the next session.
Absolutely. And
does this make sense? How Patanjali summarized everything into one simple sutra, and he captured the entire essence of Karma Yoga?
Yeah, this is for somebody who doesn't want to do yoga, or somebody doesn't want to do, as it's a beginner level, without going through the entire Ashtanga yoga. But I think where he says tapas going to the uncomfortable place, but Ashtanga yoga is the going to the uncomfortable place. I think that steps make sense this is in between, a small piece of Ashtanga yoga.
Exactly. But the thing is, this one is not just about the yoga. Of course, every action that we do is like a yoga. Yeah. But like when you go to a job, or when you do anything, or your own keeping yourself fit, going to performing an exercise is like keeping your body fit. Many people are not even aware. The key thing is, your body is is a divine gift. It's like your vehicle. And the unfortunate thing is, when I started reflecting on it, people buy expensive cars and they're very particular about the maintenance of the vehicle. Right? There is like, there is a timetable, there is a schedule, and then they don't miss anything. And there is a whole team of dealers that are working on your vehicle. But there is $1 billion vehicle that you're carrying, which is actually the main thing that allows you to experience the world. And this one, unfortunately, there are no dealers. You just have to work at it. And that
I
connection.
feel Vangmaya Tapas should be first.
Yeah.
Because we talk out of things ourselves, like, more than talking ill about others. I think what we say we are much more cruel to ourselves than others. We are much more kinder in compared to what we are for ourselves. Very critical, very judgmental, so I feel, I think Vangmaya Tapas, I would start from there, and Sharira Tapas automatically happens. Like, if I don't talk out myself from working out, then that's a success, right? So I don't know, I'm just thinking, like,
yeah, I think that's absolutely, that's one dimension. But as I was reflecting on this while I was preparing for this session, is Vangmaya Tapas, it occurred to me, is like, that Swadhyaya, every word that needs to be done, it needs to be a self-study. It's almost like we are constantly recording and replaying to ourselves. Does this make sense? And most of the time we say something we are not even aware of. It's just speech becomes a simple loose. It's like, empty words, and we don't understand the consequences. But if that becomes a continuous learning, be in that state of awareness, everything is almost like when you're speaking, you become the teacher and the student. It's almost like, you're speaking to yourself, somebody is speaking to yourself. And then I think this thought, actually, maybe I should do an experiment. I should record myself in a day and then replay it towards the end.
No, I did once. Every thought which came to me, I started writing down. Like, it went on for 3 pages, and then I said, my 3rd grade teacher came to my mind. I'm like, why she is here? Like, like the thought goes so many places, like, there's no end to it. But
look at it this way, these thoughts and words are the biggest dissipation of energy.
True.
Biggest dissipation of energy. This is the biggest leaks of energy. And this is where comes in what Shankara says, Satsangatve Nisangatvam. We need to be very, very choosy about our associations. Right? Choosy about our associations. And it means, like, not just the people, like what we associate with, the things that we watch and this and that, because all of them create impressions.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, yeah, and it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that you cannot be not having fun. No, fun can be expressed, can be experienced and expressed in a way. In other words, in fact, something might look like tamas, and then, but, it only gives that instant burst, but all it leads to is suffering. Or rajas, the one that is much more longer lasting, is the sattva based expression. That's cool. So
I have one last question.
Without
Using any fancy words, without using Vangmaya Tapas, Sharira Tapas, somebody has no idea, not an Indian, has no idea about karma, was living under a stone. You meet them it's like an elevator pitch, right? How do you explain karma to them?
Oh, I see. That's a good question. Karma is just, I think it's basically is like your responsibility, you're being responsible for your own actions. Right? And then karma also is like, what I was trying to do that is, it's more of selfless and self-empowerment action. And the thing is, the first one is, you're responsible for your actions is karma. And now how do you become, then the karma is also, eventually becomes a bondage, but everybody's like, what is bondage? Nobody knows it. You're responsible for your actions, And those results manifest in different ways that you probably don't even have a thing. But then how do you transcend this bondage? Is that always perform a selfless and self-empowerment. In other words, always move to the path of your own empowerment, move to becoming a better of yourself and better of the world around you. The more you are actually constantly striving to create a better world around you, that's the right mode of karma yoga. That's it. The world is, outer world and inner world. In fact, that is literally that's what Vivekananda used to say. He always is like, I don't want to ever go to this mountains and be these monks in this meditation. I always want to be born as a human again and again and again. And I want to be born in the service of the human and in the service of the well-being of the others. That's all he said. So it's like, karma
I think
is...
the inward and the outward, they feed off of each other. The more inward you can go, the stronger you become, you also become selfless. And then I feel that they will basically like a resonance, right? They help each other out.
True. I think, that is what is the inner peace and outer dynamics, right? When you are not stronger within the self,
what are you going to do for anybody else?
Very difficult to, because when you are not in harmony, you cannot, share harmony with others, right? When you are scattered, when you are in pieces, you can never be in peace. So I think it's extremely important. But I think, it's actually, they're mutually related, actually. And this is what I learned.
My wording probably is not, like, that's what I was trying to say. They're like very related to each other, and they help each other is what I was trying to say,
Perfect. I think, they probably are coalesced. That's what they said. That's why the creation is so beautiful. The way they designed your inner world, like what is there inside an atom is exactly what is there in the cosmos outer world, right? They're one and the same, Atman and the Brahman. So what means is, like, as an example, when I was a little bit scattered, the more I started engaging in some of the sharing activities in India and helping others, the more joyful that I became.
Mm-hmm.
And also you find solution for your problems.
Exactly. Then it's like,
because you're not focusing on yours, but somehow you will get a solution you'll have an aha moment and it somehow clears up.
And the thing is, for me, it's that I basically felt like I didn't even have any problem.
Mm-hmm.
When you see
they just
whole
dissolve
thing,
away. They become like a nothing. That's what I
exactly.
I call them as so what, so what? Let it be.
Yeah. And this is literally, the sharing is one of the, if you look at the triad of YEC, the tech entrepreneurship, where we all need to do tapas and we need to be the change agent. And then the second one is yoga and mindfulness to be in that harmonious mind. And then the third one is the sharing. The third pillar in the triad is the sharing.